Good morning. Hi, I'm Pamela Martin, a prayer practitioner here at Light on the Mountains. Let's just take this moment to go within. Perhaps close our eyes. Let go of all thoughts and all of the activities of arriving here. And just find that quiet space within, that place of spirit in our souls. We know that spirit is the first cause behind everything. It is that which manifests our words and prayers. It is harmony and peace. It is the source of our guidance, our healing, and our wholeness. And we come together today in spiritual community to get closer to this idea, to understand how spirit operates and lives within us and operates in our lives. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be together with all of you, for all of the people who make it possible here, for Reverend John, for R.L., for the music, for the volunteers, and for each and every one of you who showed up today. And so I simply give thanks, knowing that spirit is all there is, and so it is. So about 15 years ago or so, a bunch of us here from Light on the Mountains got on a bus and went to Salt Lake City to join a march to the Capitol. There was a national march. I believe it was a protest for the war in Iraq. But we did not go and protest. We went to simply state, as good religious scientists, that we were there for peace. Because in religious science, we understand the interconnectedness, the wholeness of everything, and therefore try not to be in this us versus them mentality, to be against anything, but to be for the goodness and for the wholeness and for what the universe can provide. So we went there as a representation of peace and advocating for peace. And I remember it fondly because Connie, who many of you remember, was in her 90s, at least at the time, and I was going, oh, that's kind of a long drive. And she said, well, I'm going. I was just like, I better get on that bus, because we went there and back in the same day. Anyway, so I recently read this article that kind of reminded me of that. And oddly, it was about artificial intelligence. And it had an interesting perspective and reminded me of our science of mind concepts. Recent advances such as OpenAT GPT-4 chatbot have awakened the world to how sophisticated artificial intelligence has become and how rapidly the field is advancing. It is not yet clear how the power and the possibilities of AI will play out. Could this powerful new technology help save the world? We asked 5 leading AI researchers to lay out their best case scenarios for how it may help us develop drugs, give up dull jobs, and live long, healthy lives. Most movies about AI have an us versus them mentality, but that's not really the case, Ray Kurzweil says. This is not an alien invasion of intelligent machines. It's the result of our own efforts to make our infrastructure and our way of life more intelligent. It is part of our human experience and our endeavor. We merge with our machines. Ultimately, they will extend who we are. So I wanted to read that to you so that we might have a different idea when these fears emerge and people talk about AI with so much trepidation, because everything is connected in spirit and we are all one. So we're going to read today's affirmation. If I can find it. Okay, it's in this page. Affirmation for August. We'll read it together. I am an individual creation of the divine who embraces life with great passion, purpose, and an understanding of its unlimited potential. Thank you.
Well, that's a mouthful. Good morning, everybody. A thought of the day. I got a text from a former student, someone I've worked with across a few summers here, a cellist, a couple of days ago. And it just said, hey, have you got a few minutes? Well, normally when I get a text like that, it means there's something going on in someone's life that could merit a conversation. So the answer is, whenever possible, of course. And so I was driving anyway. I needed to travel across town, and so Bluetoothed. I was driving, not holding the phone. And he called. He said, "So I think I messed up." And I was like, What's going on?" And he said, "Remember back 4 years ago when I was trying to decide whether I should be a music major or take the safe route and get a degree in computer science? And I decided to take the safe route. Well, here I am, graduated, and here's what I'm doing today. I helped load in a concert, and I'm working as a bar back until 3 in the morning tonight. What happened?" And I thought back to being 20-something, when you think everything is going to magically fall into place because, you did what you were supposed to do, and it doesn't. With this great conversation. This is the same young man who had to leave his house before he graduated high school. Same young man who found his way into college, made what appropriately at the time I think for him felt like the safe choice. A pandemic came along and the school he was in closed down completely, so in the middle of the pandemic, without a job, he had to find an apartment all on his own, and he did. This is a young man who auditioned for the first International Pride Orchestra, played third chair cello in a section of 8 with people from all over the world, college graduates, grad students, professionals. And here he was not being able to find a job. Applied everywhere I can. I had one interview. I went to the school that had the best degree program. What happened? And he said, life. Hang in there. It led to a great conversation. For me, anyway. I hope it was good for Nathan. I said, here's a question. We all have different lenses of how we look at things, right? Sometimes it's right in our face, and sometimes we can back away a little bit. How far away do you have to get from right now before right now doesn't seem like your whole life? Until it seems like a dot on the path. How far back do you have to go? How much do you have to remove yourself from the frustration of the day? And by the way, the next time that you're outside all day long, make sure you wear sunscreen and have a hat and hydrate. It will change your opinion about the day. Well, he texted me at 3 a.m. as he was finishing his job. And he said, here's the silver lining. The people that I'm working with are really nice. Love that he texted me to tell me that. It probably could have waited till 7. But not for him. He found a silver lining in this day that he thought didn't have one. And there are a bunch of our days that don't seem like they have silver linings, right? How far away do we have to get from that thing before it's just a dot? I don't know. I rarely know. I'm immensely curious all the time. Hi, John.
Thank you, R.L. Thank you, Max. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Being here in person, you never know when people are going to show up in person. Always these. I know. I didn't promise anything, did I? Anyways, welcome home, Pamela. Just want you to know, hey. Pamela is still an active part of our ministry of prayer. We have our little ministry of prayer group with our prayer practitioners on Wednesday afternoons at 4 o'clock on Zoom every week, and I see Pamela in this format. for half the year. And so it's so wonderful to see you in the flesh. It's so great. So when you look at our New Thought philosophy, there's a couple points I want to bring up. We look at prayer differently, and we define it as a movement of thought. We don't define it as asking for something or beseeching for something or finding the right angel or whatever who might fill out the requisition form. It's a movement of thought within you to raise your vibrational receptibility. And what works with that is that we also have a belief that the universe is an energy system that is receptive to that thought and belief. So again, you don't have things magically jump on your porch, but your movement of thought opens a new pathway for you that you may not have been on previously, and showing you opportunities that, again, you as a free will person can say yes or no to, but before that movement of thought, you may not have seen those opportunities or choices as being available. So the reason why I just kind of review this, many of us this week, I think, had significant movements of thought. It's funny, our little group here, bless you, we share a passion for the Writers' Conference. In fact, I don't know if anyone was here last week because we were all there in some form or another. There's some of us like me. I've had a very minor staff position with them forever, and I took it mostly so I could see a lot of the conference, you know. We have many of our members over the years have volunteered and still continue to volunteer. We, of course, some of our members go and buy the pass and show up that way. In the last few years, the conference has made a lot of it free online, so there's no excuse not to experience a great deal of it. You could also go on the lawn during the talks in the pavilion if you want to sit in the 90-degree heat, but people did quite wonderfully, and it's still available now. Much of it is available in Livestein for free. Some of it will be in perpetually available, some not so much, depending on the contracts with the authors. So I would say if you've not had the experience yet, go online. It's free, and it's amazing. And one of the things that I love, that I always tell people that go, regardless of what capacity, is that, of course, so maybe you don't know what the Writers' Conference is. Writers come and talk about their work. Some people think, oh, was it a workshop to learn how to write? No. It is well-known writers, sometimes internationally recognized and praised, coming and talking about their work. But it's a little sneaky. They talk about their work, but they talk about their lives. And sometimes the way that they talk about their lives is transformational for the listeners. And I always tell people, especially if you're going for the first times, that you may have, yes, I want to see this person, the other person, but be ready for something that will blow you away. Because there's always that one experience where you go, oh yeah, I read the book and it was great, I might as well go see it, that they talk about their experience in their life in such a way that it is a movement of thought. It opens you up to see something far beyond just them talking about something that they wrote, that it speaks to you at such a deep level that it literally changes your life in some sort of way. It really is amazing to go there not knowing what you're going to receive, and to receive something kind of amazing. And this year, like so many years, all of you are running around the campus of Sun Valley and, like chasing me down. You were right. This happened and this happened. Did you see it? Did this happen? Yes, I told you. Yeah, now we got to go. But it just, people checking in with me like, oh, did you see it? Did you hear it? Did you understand it? I have to watch this again. So the amazing thing about this experience, as the experience of life, is to be open to what appears to be externals to changing your internal. So in this week, I jumped the gun on August's theme. I don't know if you noticed it's not August yet. Yeah. But let me go get my piece of paper over here. So the theme we created this month is passion, purpose, and potential, and somehow that just seemed like the right thing to write off of the Writers' Conference, because so much of what some of the different people were talking about is their own potential and purpose. And it's interesting in here, as we talk about purpose, we can get, confused. within purpose and passion and potential, we have this idea of, we'd say, a calling. What is that purpose for us, for me individually? And if you go to the writers' conference and you hear writers who are passionate about what they do, part of us long for that level of calling, don't you? It's like they're so well placed in what they're doing in their life, and I, at this age, still haven't figured it out yet. And so it's like inspirational, and then you go, well, what about me? I really thought at this point in my life that I would figure it out. Well, you have, but we delude ourselves into thinking that we don't. We have this idea of what a calling is, and I love the story you gave R.L. because he's going to do that for the rest of his life, because we all have done this our whole lives. It didn't turn out as I had hoped. I took this course, I went to this thing, I went to this location, and guess what? Nothing turned out the way that I thought. And it may have disappointed me in some way, or like filled me up with such expectation, and it met and exceeded it that I couldn't believe it. Sometimes you just don't know how it's going to show up, but you keep showing up. So one of the things as we talk about this month, especially about the idea of callings that I want to look at today, to realize, first of all, it's not what you think. We think more often than not, that a calling is expressed in choosing a particular profession or activity in your life, hoping to get some sort of meaning out of your chosen profession. And you can, and we do. But that's not the real calling. Here's something I found out about myself, is that, I could name off the different type of jobs and professions that I have, and they don't seem to fit together. I mean, it's really kind of weird, some of the different things I did. I'm not going to go into it. But many of the things that I express here as a clergy person, I expressed in each one of those jobs that I did. That sometimes the job that you have, and you may think of it as menial or not important, it's an excuse to show up in your calling. And many times in the past, showing up as a salesperson, going to salons, selling them shampoo, and these customers I knew pretty well because I would see them on a periodic basis, that energetically was like, we're not here to sell shampoo today, there's something else going on. There's something deeper happening here today that I was being called to show up for. We all do that. The trouble is that sometimes we don't listen to that. We think, no, I'm here about the shampoo today. Well, no, you're not. That calling is sneaky. So it's not about what you're doing, but it's how you're doing it. So anytime that you may look longingly at someone who seems to be so well fitted in what they're doing, it's not the profession they're doing per se. They are so well suited to it that they figured out that that's just an excuse of showing up in the world to do something. That's a lot deeper, a lot more significant. And again, you could be delivering pizza, and you could have this amazing calling as you do that. Who knew? And you could have a job like mine and be terrible at it. Oh, terrible at it. And make no difference in the world. But you think, well, because of this title, that it's going to. It's not guaranteed. So you always have to be aware of the cover story of why you're showing up, and then start to do your work. Why am I really showing up here? Because the outside always changes. And we certainly have learned that these last few years. The outside is always changing. Often, the portions of that calling may not. And you have variations of the theme. But think about this week. Just start, be quiet with this. How have you shown up in a sense of calling in jobs that you just thought were ridiculous? How did you get out of the way? So it's not about delivering pizza or selling shampoo. There's something else going on. Think about this week. You might be surprised. So let's talk about callings of on one hand, that we think we judge it as being significant in someone else and being about something completely different. So there is one of the talks that I believe is still on live stream, I hope so, of Abraham Verghese. Who in this room had the joy of experiencing Abraham Verghese? Okay, well, you got to see him. Got to watch this. So this is my homework to you. You have to watch this. I don't tell people, I found it's futile to tell any of you what you need to do. But my suggestion is that in this great summer this week, that you take an hour of your time to do this. Because he has such a sense of calling that on some level has nothing to do with his professions. Now, it is easy to be so blown away by the physical form of the work he does in the world. It's almost like, why bother? You know that person that just does so many things so well, and you think, I can never live up to that. You know, we judge ourselves, and he's one of those persons like, do you sleep? I mean, how do you have time to do all this? So he is a physician and a very renowned and recognized writer. His current book is the Covenant of Water. I don't know if anyone is reading that. It's over 700 pages, so it's a commitment, but it's great. He was commenting how somehow Oprah Winfrey got wind of this book and made it part of her book club, and now he's getting all this international acclaim, even more international acclaim, getting the Oprah kiss of approval. So it's almost like winning the lottery, so to speak. But I first had my experience with him was at the Writers' Conference 10 or 15 years ago. And some of you, yeah. Those who were there still remember that and how it changed my life? I remember that. So he talked at that time. He was just, I guess, beginning to write. Wrote the book Cutting for Stone. He was a physician, and particularly he talked about during the mid-'80s as AIDS broke out in our world and in our country. And he said that he became very humbled by it because his egoistic doctor self believed that he was super person and could heal anything. And he realized, as all of us did at that time, that at least for that period, there was biologically, medically, virtually nothing that could be done. And he talks about it a little bit this last week, that he realized his job was two things. The only thing he had to offer often was to sit there and hold a patient's hand. The other thing was to help open the door to families who had disowned their sons for being gay, and to make them realize that this was their last chance to make good in their family. That was his calling. Pretty big, wasn't it? And I remember, of course, being in Los Angeles at that time, I did volunteer work for Project Angel Food, which delivered meals every day to AIDS patients who were housebound. They weren't to the point that they had to go to the hospital to die yet, but they were home and couldn't work. And I had a little route. I did it 1 or 2 days a week, depending on my availability. And I'd go like 10 or 15 homes, apartments. And what really affected me at that time was the isolation that these men, mostly men, were facing. That it appeared that sometimes I was the only knock at the door they experienced, and that 2 to 5 minute interaction, I could see how meaningful it was to them. Not that we were talking about anything particular, but that there was contact. And I would shake their hand. I would show them I was not afraid to touch them. And so that's where he came to his, I think, a calling of just being a human being. So it wasn't so much about the medical aspect. I think he awakened to his calling there. So knowing that, I saw an aspect of that with him this week that very few people saw. So he's doing his big thing in the pavilion and with 1,500 people in front of him. And for those who don't know how the Writers' Conference works, at least this year, there are 4 times that we go into what we call breakout sessions, meaning the authors speak in front of smaller groups, and 7 of these happen simultaneously. So we'll split the 1,500 into 7, and that shows you it's a smaller thing. And my job as a staff person is that I kind of ran and oversaw the Opera House, which is one of those venues, and they had rented tents. There's 4 tents to hold 200 people each. That there's some of these other things here. And so I finished my thing. And it's about a half an hour after it ended. Of course, they all end at the same time. And now time marches on. It's like the schedule, got to run to the next thing, and I'm going to the pavilion to see who's there or what I can do to help out. And I walked past the tent where Abraham Verghese had just finished a half an hour previous of his breakout session. And he was still there. And he was in a very informal group, just kind of like standing around, like we stand around with coffee after Sunday service, just talking. And there was something about his body language that just related that he was completely present for these 6 or 7 people. I don't know what they were talking about. I don't know what they were doing. I know that most other people would have been gone 20 minutes previous to that, but he was there. The guy that learned that in the mid-'80s with patience, the key was to be present, was being present in just this completely different circumstance. So this was my personal aha takeaway moment for the Writers' Conference. I will never be a physician. I don't care to be a physician. I dabble with writing, but I don't feel called to try to get a book and sell it in a bestseller. But I can be present. I can be present when it seems like, oh, I have to run to the next thing. Of course he had to run to the next thing, but he chose not to run to the next thing. So to me, that is the essence of calling. It's not, again, what you're doing, it's how you are doing it. I'm sure any of the authors, if they had chosen, could just be big old sourpusses for the whole 3 days if they wanted to. None of them were, to my knowledge, but it's how you show up. And the thing about callings, too, is that, again, we have this fantasy of what they are and how they work. We think if I get the idea that it all falls into place, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. It's all laid out. I got the right degree. I went to the right class. I bought the right house. I married the right person. I'm done. Boy, you're so not done. Have we all figured that out at this point? You're so not done. Any of you that are on the younger end, I hate to break the news to you, you're not done. You've barely begun. Life and callings has a way of just moving in different directions. And just when you think you've got it licked and handled, that's where it seemingly falls apart to reform again. You know, I learned something as a kid. So, of course, as a kid, I was obsessed by many things. One of them, Legos. I had a huge Lego collection, filled bags of it. And I would love to build these, like, intricate things. I don't even know what I did. But it would take all my Lego pieces. And I had this, like, little card table in my room, and it'd be like this monument to what I had just accomplished. And, you know, I'd bring my friends in from down the street, look what I did. And I was, like, excited, but I would be on this, like, what do I do now? Yes, it's amazing, but I can't build anything new until I take it apart. I could always buy new ones, but my parents were over that at that point. You've got enough. So similar to callings. I've built it. This is it. It's perfect. It's happening. And it falls apart. Not because you were bad, not because you had bad thoughts. It's because your life, all of our lives, have a way of growing and expanding and going to different areas that just challenge us at the core yet again. And what seems to be like a falling apart is actually just a dismantling so it can be built up again in a different form. That's what we're doing right now in the world. That's what we're doing here as a spiritual community. And it's funny, I've mentioned this before, but just thinking about this incident again of how we just think, I've got it so perfect. It's just right. We don't need to change a thing here. So during this pandemic, I have thought quite a bit about the time in September of 2019 that we all met at R.L.'s house. As most of you know, we have what we call a stewardship program every year. It's like we all commit to what our financial commitment is so we can open our doors yet for another year, but it's deeper than that. What are we doing as a community? And we talk about finances, and we launched that month-long event with an event in someone's home. This year, Doug and Diana are going to host it, and you'll know more to come on that in September. But that year, it was at R.L.'s, and I remember it was perfect. I remembered that even thinking back to when I was having my interviews here with some of you and some people that are no longer here anymore, who've either moved or passed, and just as you expressed your hopes and dreams to me as a spiritual community, and that night it was like, we did it. I mean, I was really aware that we had done it. Maybe not exactly as we thought it would show up, but just the excitement and how people showed up, and we had the most successful pledge campaign we'd ever had in 20-odd years, and it just seemed like we did it. And then March of 2020 came, and it all fell apart. It didn't really fall apart. It said that it's time now for something else. Not just for us, for everyone. Who has not had the opportunity in the last few years to deeply look into their lives, your motivations, goals, ideas of what you want to do, and come to the conclusion that it's time to start shifting your path in some way? Even if your physical life looks much the same, that there's, at the very least, a very different inner path that this has led us all to do. And it's frustrating, because in this world that has just kind of gone a little crazy, we can almost look longingly back to 2019 and just put it on a little altar and say, oh, if we could only do that again in that way. But you can't. The Lego set just got thrown all over the place. And like I said, for me, after being here for so long, thinking we did it, and now it's like, oh, we have to do it again. But that's just how it is. But you see, in that, there is different forms through this period of time, but the calling is the same. The calling is to realize and see the presence of the divine in all things, regardless of how it shows up. Or as Mother Teresa says, in its most distressing disguise. There's lots of those distressing disguises today. And we have the same calling to see the divine in it nonetheless. And in a sense, have a movement of thought that we see it even if it makes no sense, and know that as we see it, a different path is shown the way. It may not be easy, not that it has to be hard. It may not be as clear as we would like it to be, but it's there. And the way that I believe, I have found out that we, I guess, I hate to use the word succeed, embrace your calling, even if you can't put a name on it or what that is, but knowing that it is how you show up, is that absolutely believe that the path that is perfect for you and all that we share this crazy world with is available and accessible by all, even when you can't see it, knowing that most of the time you will not be able to see it. I've been comparing this time period to my 2 years before coming here, between graduating from the School of Ministry and coming here to you people. I had no idea what was going to happen. There were times I thought I wasted that tuition money of $30,000 because there was nothing available. I was in a part of the country that I can't believe that I landed. And I thought, well, this is a funny irony, isn't it? Nothing is turning out the way that I had hoped or envisioned or set my intentions. But guess what? It did. So what I came to the realization during that time is to know that, first of all, to stop putting a label on what I thought I had to experience. That I was perfectly poised and positioned to do the work that I was supposed to do in the world. And not from this lofty, kind of weird Moses on the mountain kind of thing. It's just like, I'm here for a reason. I could be here for the rest of my life, but I'm here for a reason. What is my purpose each and every day? How do I show up in each and every day? Isn't it almost kind of like a universal joke here that I showed up in a way that I never ever thought in a million years that I would? But I knew the direction that I needed to take was real. It was solid. It was in this path that I was being set up to for my belief of showing up the best I could in each and every day. And what I came out of that experience is that your life is spent more not knowing than knowing. And we have deluded ourselves into thinking that we will come to this moment of, I got it, and it's here, and it's done. Those moments are rare, and they are fleeting. So here we are in this crazy world. Where are we going? I don't know. Here we are in this amazing spiritual community that many of us shared for many years. What's our next step? I don't know. What am I doing as my next steps? I don't know. But I know I'm showing up each and every day. As many days as I'm supposed to show up right here, I will. And my determination is to be as present as I can, to embrace and savor it right here and right now, and know that tomorrow will be there when I get there. So, that's your calling. Let's take this within. So let us give thanks together for this amazing life we share. We share as a spiritual community. We share as a world community. It is amazing. And we accept that deeper calling within us, even if we are never able to put a label on it. We just keep showing up. We are determined to be present and complete and our greater, higher selves right where we are in each and every moment. We know that as we do so, the perfect path is laid before us. The path may be foggy and unable to see it clearly, but it is right there, taking one step at a time. We say yes. We say yes to what we can't even see, but we say yes. And we give thanks. So in this Thanksgiving, from this call that comes from within, again, in Thanksgiving, we say yes, and we, in a sense, release this idea, meaning we release our attachment to it. We know that the universe takes the impression of our thoughts and creates in our highest good, all the time, every time, in perfection. And so it is.